So, Paulie, what are your thoughts on the controversial decision with Pacquiao versus Horn?
I think Pacquiao was a very competitive fight. I think it was a close fight. I thought it was an entertaining fight, which is I think most important. I think regardless of the argument of who people think won and lost, I think the bottom line is it was a big fight that generated a lot of viewers, especially in the U.S. So we generated. I think ESPN had the highest viewership in about 20 some years for one of their boxing broadcasts. So that's always positive. I think at the end of the day, it's a matter of who you like. Boxing is a very subjective sport. I watched the fight several different times at this point. On fight night, I watched it with no volume, and I thought Horn won. I've continuously thought that Horn won, but I think I could also see it going to Pacquiao very close. To call a fight like that a robbery is a bit extreme. It's one of those fights that's close enough, though, to where it's competitive. Both guys end up feeling they won it at the end of the fight. So I think a rematch is really, in order, and those are the kind of fights that make for good rematches, and make for rematches that people want to see. I watched several different broadcasts from several different countries when I went on YouTube, and both of them had Horn winning the fight. So I think the entire quote-unquote blasphemy that ESPN tried to portray this as, where it was one of the worst decisions you could see, I think was totally uncalled for, really. I'm still trying to figure out why they would, have this agenda so pro-Pacquiao, so anti-Horn when the fight was competitive. I think sometimes, people want to, they assume a fight is going to go a certain way. And I think sometimes when they assume a fight is going to go a certain way, they start to watch it, and they continue to see it through those binoculars, so to speak, through those goggles, so to speak, to where it's the way they thought it was going to happen. So even if the fight is not happening in the way they expected or predicted it would, they continuously think it's happening that way. Even right in front of them, they start to lie to themselves. And I think it's sometimes it's part of human emotion, human error. I think a lot of people in the U.S. thought that the Pacquiao Horn fight was going to be not very non-competitive. I had seen Horn fight. I had watched them on some videos before because we had a potential common opponent in mind. I was going to fight Ahmed Al-Massoui for the European title maybe a year or two ago, and Horn had fought him. So I was watching some Al-Massoui fights, and I had watched the Horn versus Al-Massoui fight. Obviously, me and Al-Massoui never fought. It would end up, going by the wayside. But in the meantime, I had already seen Jeff Horn fighting. So I remembered him, and I remembered he was a weird, awkward guy, physical guy, hard to time kind of guy. So I told people it was going to be a tougher fight than people were expecting here in the U.S. I wasn't